Hey you, I'm Sarah Turner, copywriter and copywriting mentor, and I want to talk to you about 5 personality traits of successful copywriters, plus a few I don't generally agree with that you often see on lists floating around. So I really want to start out with, when I see these lists, especially around like copywriters and entrepreneurs, I often feel like the author is writing about them from a perspective of like patting themselves on the back. Like, I am these things, and therefore if you are not these things, you can't go down the path I went down. And I really want to have more conversations around that, because I believe that we are incredibly dynamic creatures and we all have the ability to cultivate different aspects of our personality, and you can turn up and turn down different areas of your personality, okay? And this is not just something that I believe, it's really based in science. If you have ever heard of epigenetics, it is a study of how we can turn up and down genes, and I think it's something that really is important for all of us to understand. Our DNA is not fixed. We can change much more than we've ever been led to believe. So I want to start out with that massive caveat, because I think that these lists can actually be harmful in creating self-limiting beliefs that hold people back from actually trying to do something for themselves and to cultivate new things in their lives. So with that in mind, and understanding that that is something I strongly believe, I do want to say that I have noticed some patterns in successful copywriters. And the first character trait that I really think is one of the key elements to being a successful copywriter is being empathetic. So being empathetic really helps you as a copywriter, because you're actually able to put yourself in the shoes of the person you are writing to. And that helps you paint more clear pictures. It helps you connect with them on an emotional level. And I think it's really powerful, because if you're truly empathetic, you're really only going to want to write for people that you believe in, and for brands and businesses and companies that are in alignment with your values. And I think it's so important that we move more towards conscious and heart-centered copywriting. So being empathetic is really a powerful trait for copywriters. It also is one of the reasons that I think people who start out in copywriting feel kind of cringy or slimy when they study old copywriting techniques, because I think that those don't come from an authentic place, but it doesn't mean that there isn't something that can be learned or taken away or applied to your copy moving forward. So that is kind of my thought on that. The second characteristic is being curious. If you love the idea of being a forever student or getting paid to learn, copywriting is for you. It is literally my favorite part of the job. Actually, at least one of the favorite parts is that I get to learn constantly. I get paid to research, I get paid to write, and so I am a very curious person, and that is just like a dream come true. This third thing is being resourceful. You've got to be willing to figure things out on your own, and to not always rely on other people, but to come up against a problem and say, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. The next one is being detail-oriented, and this is not being a perfectionist. I just mean that you are willing to really take the time to go through and implement things so that it has cohesiveness. And this includes when you're, making sure your tone or your cadence is cohesive, and learning things that really make the flow of your copy better. This is also really important when you are working with your clients. You want to be very detail-oriented, and keep in mind, especially at the beginning, that even though your emails that you're writing your client, for example, aren't actual pieces of copy, they are being judged on a subconscious level. So be really detail-oriented in all your interactions with your clients. This also has the benefit of, really setting expectations well. And that's gonna make your client interaction something that is just more enjoyable overall. The fifth characteristic is being persistent. So being persistent is super important as a copywriter. If you're one to give up easy, this is really gonna be a tough thing for you to get into, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Again, I really think that we can cultivate within ourselves a lot of different aspects of our personality. I'm much different now than I was 5, 10, 15 years ago. So traits that you often see on these lists that I did not intentionally include because I actually think it stops people in their tracks from trying out new ways of, thinking about, not just even with copywriting, but with entrepreneurship in general, is I often see thick-skinned being on the list. And I gotta tell you, when I first started out, I was not thick-skinned. I am a sensitive soul. I really took those things that, my clients would say to me about my copy to heart. And what I realized is that it's because I care. I care about my work. I write for people I love. And so I care about what they think and if it's effective. Like, I genuinely care. So I would not have considered myself thick-skinned. But over time, I've definitely gotten a little tougher, and what I've learned to do instead is detach myself from my work. I remind myself regularly, like, my writing is not me. Somebody can think whatever they want about their writing. It doesn't mean that it's also being applied to who I am as a person. Another one that I often see is being risk-taking. So I would not consider myself like a traditional risk-taking entrepreneur, but I have learned that it is important to have a more experimental mindset when it comes to copywriting, because that's literally our job, to test and to try things, to take the feedback and implement it and make it better. So being a risk taker, when I would see those on like lists about what makes a successful copywriter, just didn't resonate with me. That's not who I thought I was. The other one I really want to touch on is being creative. I would have never called myself creative, 5 years ago, even maybe 10, because I just thought of myself, I came from a science background. I consider myself very rational and logical and, methodical in the way I did things. And so I didn't consider myself creative. So, the idea of creative writing and, being a creative, it was just, it stopped me in my tracks sometimes because I was like, that's not who I am. But I have learned that creativity is a muscle and you can absolutely exercise it and make it stronger. And I've come to believe that we are all inherently creative people. But if you see that on the list and you think, I'm not a creative person, I could never be a copywriter, and that stops you, that's a huge bummer. So I just really wanted to call it out and give you my thoughts on it because I think it's a little different than most. And again, remember, you are an incredibly dynamic human. You can cultivate traits within yourself that you don't think of as being one of your core personality traits. We are incredible beings. And so I really want to encourage you. So, I'm getting off my soapbox, but I feel like all of that is super important. If you liked it, hit that thumbs up, and I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had a personality trait that you thought wasn't something that really defined you, only to find out that you could actually cultivate it and make it better and stronger and a part of who you are? And of course, please share with me any ideas that you have for videos you'd like to see in the future. I love hearing from you. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks, guys.